We have breaking news to CNN. A source tells CNN that Trump ally and the founder of Turning Points USA, Charlie Kirk, was shot at an event on a college campus in Utah.
Charlie Kirk has been shot. We have very few details so far coming in on this. We're dependent on witnesses.
Charlie Kirk is a divisive figure, polarizing, lightning rod, whatever term you want to use. Why?
One of these things is not like the other. That's, of course, how the major cable news networks reported on the tragic shooting of Charlie Kirk that eventually took his life. CNN and Fox News basically kept it to the facts as they knew it. MSNBC, however, couldn't resist adding their own layer of politics. Hi, I'm Mediaite founding editor Colby Hall, and as I wrote in a column yesterday, MSNBC failed to meet a very basic standard for how they reported on Charlie Kirk's shooting. First, let's look at the right way to do it. CNN's Boris Sanchez and David Chalian.
As we work to confirm some of these videos that are circulating online and we try to get an awareness of the status of Kirk's health, it's important to step back and point out the impact that he's had in recent years on politics, and certainly conservative politics. He's turned this sort of grassroots organization, Turning Points USA, into a juggernaut when it comes to connecting youth conservatives and the conservative agenda on college campuses.
Without a doubt. I mean, first, let me say my prayers are with Charlie Kirk right now, and I'm sure everybody watching feels the same. This is horrific to see what we're seeing here.
Good for them. That's the right way to do it. Even if you don't agree with Charlie Kirk's politics and think he's some sort of brash provocateur, this is a human story, not a partisan story. Now we cut to the way that MSNBC reacted initially as this news broke.
What can you tell us about Charlie Kirk? What was he doing at the university?
Well, he was on tour giving one of the speeches as part of his group, Turning Point USA. The video showed that the crowd there was quite large. There were a lot of people who were in attendance, not unusual. I mean, he's one of the most influential conservative leaders really in the MAGA movement nationwide. So this definitely comes as a surprise. Again, there's a lot that we really don't know yet. I know we were just talking about the federal takeover in Washington. That began after a member of the Doge team was allegedly assaulted in Washington. So it's going to be interesting to see what conservative leaders want to do there after this episode.
Yeah.
That's MSNBC political reporter Alan Smith, who, before any details really emerged, immediately suggested that the Trump administration was going to leverage this to, take advantage of it somehow. But then it got worse. Katie Tour, who I like and typically does a really good job, she loved the Alan Smith idea and doubled down on it. And immediately, before any information was known, reflexively went to how will the Trump administration exploit this looming tragedy, this shooting, in a way to do bad things.
And the after effects of this are certainly going to be terrible.
I mentioned the after effects because, as we were just talking about a moment ago with Alan, after one of the Doge employees was allegedly attacked in Washington, D.C., that's what Donald Trump used as justification to send in federal troops into Washington, D.C. to get things under control. The carjacking situation, he used that. And I know it's hard to predict the future, Mark, but you can imagine the administration using this as a justification for something.
That may be true, but the timing of this, totally irresponsible. And, well, it made MSNBC look really bad. But again, it got way worse. The reports of exactly what happened are not confirmed yet. But talk to me about the environment in which a shooting like this happens.
Yeah, and again, emphasize what you just emphasized. We don't know any of the full details of this. We don't know if this was a supporter shooting their gun off in celebration, or so we have no idea about this.
That's Matthew Dowd suggesting that the shooting was just, it was a celebratory gunshot by Charlie Kirk supporters, right? He didn't know, so he just irresponsibly speculated. But then it got way worse.
But following up what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. And I think that's the environment we're in, that people just, you can't stop with these sort of awful thoughts you have and then saying these awful words and not expect awful actions to take place.
Matt.
And that's the unfortunate environment we're in.
Turning Point USA has confirmed that he was shot.
Again, Matthew Dowd, literally blaming the victim. Before he knew anything, just sort of suggested that, maybe Charlie Kirk had it coming. Now, this was before he was reported to have died from this fatal gunshot wound, and that we knew that it looked like political violence. But that's irresponsible. Don't have a guy on your TV network that just speculate randomly and just suggest that, he created this environment that he is now victim to. This, again, is not a place to sort of air your partisan narratives. It's a time to focus on the news as you know it, and that's deeply irresponsible. More on that in a minute. Now, news broke that Charlie Kirk sadly passed away. And again, this is not a time to point fingers. And there's a lot of finger pointing, not just on the left. A lot on the right are literally, basically calling for retribution, like this from Jesse Waters.
Yeah, we're sick, we're sad, we're angry, and we're resolute. And we're going to avenge Charlie's death in the way Charlie would want it to be avenged. They are at war with us. Whether we want to accept it or not, they are at war with us.
But not everyone on Fox News was saying that sort of stuff. Shockingly, on the same episode of The Five, Greg Gutfeld sort of defended the left, or at least suggested that this looked like something more than just a political lefty attack.
It's interesting. We don't know who did this, but I do know it doesn't help the left, which makes me think, is it the left? I don't know. We don't know, but it feels professional. That's all it feels to me.
Now, eventually, President Trump, who was close to Charlie Kirk, put out a statement and said that hateful rhetoric is to blame here. This is why you don't call your political enemies Nazis.
It's a long past time for all Americans and the media to confront the fact that violence and murder are the tragic consequence of demonizing those with whom you disagree day after day, year after year, in the most hateful and despicable way possible. For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now.
Did he take it too far? You could argue, but that argument resonates with a lot of Americans. We need to cool the temperature. That said, MSNBC Jen Psaki, well, this is her reaction.
But there was a line at the end that I think I just wanted to raise and read. At the end of this 4-minute video, he says, "For years, those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now." And obviously, there's a lot of rhetoric that is problematic. A lot of it is coming from one particular side and from one particular building. But what can be done? I fear when this is an escalation already in less than 24 hours of this shooting.
So her suggestion that his calling out Nazi rhetoric is sort of adding fuel to the fire, is elevating this, is weird. That just, again, it shows a knee-jerk reaction to scoring political points rather than trying to, A, get to the facts as we know them, B, also cool the temperature. And what it shows is that even on MSNBC, people benefit, they profit, they get viewers by hitting buttons that make people outraged and angered, regardless. You want to know why we're so divided? It's that media landscape that literally sells ads against outrage content. Fox News really pioneered it. MSNBC is doing the same. It's not good. It's really bad. Now, as coda to this story, MSNBC President Rebecca Cutler put out an apology for what Matthew Dowd said, and then shortly thereafter, news broke that Matthew Dowd was no longer employed by MSNBC as a contributor. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Look, I wrote a column again this morning about how in the day that followed 9/11, there wasn't much to do in New York City. I lived a mile away. Everything was shut down. I tried to give blood. I couldn't. But then a friend called me and said, you got to go to the West Side Highway and see what's going down. What happened on the West Side Highway was first responders were, without being called, volunteering to take their trucks, take their fire trucks, and go down to ground zero and try to remove rubble because that's what needed to happen. Were they going to save any lives? They hoped. But even if they weren't, that was the right thing to do. The most amazing thing, however, was there was a sudden collection of about 100 people, myself included, that just had nothing to do but to cheer these heroes, right? It became known as Hero Highway. And the people that were there cheering them on, it was the drag queens of the West Village in 2001, hedge fund people that lived in the West Village. It was hipsters. It was, sort of social workers and blue collar workers. And guess what? We were all Americans. There was no identity politics. There was no partisan jibes. There was just an immediate unification. And we could take a real lesson from that moment, because it's exactly what we need. The assassination of Charlie Kirk is not on the same scale as 9/11, to be clear. But the way we're bitterly divided right now, I got to tell you, we're not going to heal from that by staring at social media or watching cable news or scoring points and pointing fingers. Drop the phone. Stop watching TV. Go out and actively engage with your community, because frankly, things are bad, and the onus is on each of us to try to heal. That's my preachy moment for the day. Again, I'm media founding editor Colby Hall. Please click the like and subscribe button for more videos like this. Thank you for watching.